Well, it is draft night on the Big D podcast. Before I bring in today's special guest, please subscribe, like, and share the Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page. Yes, it is NFL draft night, so you know what I'm going to be doing all night. Also, check out the Big D podcast for all your audio listeners on Spotify and Apple. So, joining the Big D from Jacksonville, Florida, is the Kev. So, the Kev, you know what tonight is, right? The
Yep.
annual NFL selection meeting.
Yep. It is draft day. Busy one at that.
Yeah, the right now the Jaguars have the 24th pick in the 2023 NFL draft after back-to-back number one picks. What do we like? What do we like in Trevor Lawrence? I'm not sure about Trayvon Walker yet, but we'll see how that goes.
Well, I think as my 15-year-old son likes to say, Trevor Lawrence is him. I think for once we got it right. Um, I think, I was talking with somebody earlier today and they said, well, who do you think we need to draft? What position do you think we need to draft? And I was just joking with them. I said, we need to draft quarterback. I think Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee looks good. They're like, are you serious? I'm like, no. But I think that number one pick, there, Trayvon Walker. I mean, the jury's still out. He's starting to get it together, but jury's still out on him, I think.
Hey, even Urban Meyer couldn't have screwed up that number one pick 2 years ago.
Sure.
So, what are your favorite Jacksonville memories? Obviously, 95 would have been at the top of the list when we got Tony Baselli out of Southern Cal, right?
Sure. I think one of my favorite ones, being a Gator fan, is when we drafted Fred Taylor. Certainly Baselli. I mean, Hall of Famer this year, the Jags' only Hall of Famer. Fred Taylor, a couple of good draft picks. I'm in the minority on this one, but I still love the Jalen Ramsey draft. Um, I think though, in the Jaguar history, you could point out bad draft picks better than you can pick out good draft picks. I mean, you could look at Blaine Gabbert, you could look at RJ Soward, you could look at Blake Bortles. You could look at a number of years where there's like, what are you doing? And finally, I think we have a front office that maybe knows what they're doing better than the other guys, but I think there's a team and a chemistry there, together that gets things right. I was very not optimistic. I was very pessimistic on last year's pick, but I just don't think that they can screw this year up.
Well, I mean, a lot of people thought the Jags were going to take Aiden Hutchinson, but with that hyper 3-4 defense, you wonder if Aiden Hutchinson can be a stand-up clutch linebacker. And maybe what Trent Baalke was thinking was, we know Walker can be that 3-4 outside linebacker because he played at Georgia.
Sure.
And it looked like Trayvon Walker still had room to grow. It was part of that great Georgia 2021 Georgia defense, which might have like 8 first rounders by the end of the
Got
night.
quite a few. It's got quite a few, but yeah, I agree. I think with the number one pick overall, I think everybody was, including myself, was looking to see a little more, a little more, after the quarterback. I'm not saying the guy did a bad job at all. What I am saying is that I think that the expectations were higher than the actual performance.
But I mean the NFL draft isn't an exact science. We all want the number one pick to become Miles Garrett or Nick Bosa. Well,
Sure.
it's better if Trayvon Walker doesn't play like Steve Edmond, one of the biggest draft busts in the early '90s.
Sure. Or if he's a Derek Harvey type, guy, or again, not upset with him at all. Just think that especially over, down here, the expectation was. I'll tell you this: Jaguar fans, man, can be real fickle real quick. We're used to losing, so we get the number one pick, 2 years in a row, and we expect to see some fruits of the labor, if you will.
Well, besides Trevor, a couple years ago, who have been some recent Jacksonville hits in the draft? Because there's a cornerback. We mentioned a pass rusher from Georgia, but there's a cornerback from Georgia I really like.
What you try a cornerback?
Yeah, a couple years ago, Mr. Campbell.
Yeah, Tyson Campbell.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that guy's good.
he's very good. I think my biggest thing on the defense is that he needs some help. I don't think he had near the help that he deserved last year. I don't think Brown, Trey Herndon, Chris Claybrooks, any of those guys, even the safeties, back there with Cisco, Wingard, and Jenkins. I mean, I don't think he had near the help. I think he got picked on a little bit, but yes, the future is very bright for Mr. Campbell.
Yeah, he needed Griffin to stay healthy and not be a bum, right?
That guy cost us at least 2 games. At least 2 games.
And now he's gone.
He is currently, they like call him off the chart.
So
Yeah.
heading into this year's draft, obviously we talked about Jacksonville having the 24th pick. Where are Jacksonville's needs? Because we talked about cornerback, but what are some other needs?
I think if you look at their big needs, I think safety comes to mind. I think an edge comes to mind. Something to get on the quarterback. I'm not a big believer that tight end is a need right now. But I think if you would have asked me this question last night, I would have told you a safety is what we need. And you wouldn't have been able to move me from that. After the events of this morning with Cam Robinson, very likely going to be suspended for 6 games for performance enhancing drug. I think offensive line now is a need. You have to protect your investment, and your investment is about to be Trevor Lawrence. So you have to, and you did a lot of work. You have Calvin Ridley coming. That offense cannot suck. And if Trevor he has to get the ball out of his hands quick, but if he cannot get the protection that he needs, or if he gets hurt, we're screwed. So that's basically what I mean with that wide receiving core with Trevor Etienne back there. That offense should score 30 points a game without even thinking. And you can't do that without a top 5 offensive line.
Agree. Going in the last time, I was thinking DB, edge, maybe a tight end, but now I think it's got to be tackle, because guess what? If Trevor Lawrence is on his butt the whole game, guess what? The Jags aren't going to win. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
Gary Rice is a wide receiver 1.
Sure. It's tough. You go corner, you go edge, somebody rush a quarterback. I mean, I would have put money on Brian Branch being drafted at 24 before this morning. I think that they're downtown right now freaking out. But like I talked to somebody down there this morning, and I asked them, I said, hey, look, did you guys know this? Because we're just finding out now about Cam Robinson, but they've had to know it's coming down the line, for some time. So they're probably really prepared for it. If they found out today, just like the rest of the world did, then they're down there scrambling.
I wonder what Trent Baalke and Doug Peterson are thinking right now. They're probably going like,
yeah. They're down there. Shad Khan's probably in there with them, not really understanding what they're talking about. But, I just think it's very convenient that the story broke today. Could he not have waited until tomorrow? I just think it's very convenient that it broke today. So Um,
You imagine if it broke after the Jaguars make their pick.
oh, sure, sure. What was it a couple of years ago when that guy from the Dolphins is like an hour before the draft, and they said that they caught him smoking marijuana or something like that.
You mean Laramie Tunzel?
Yeah, yeah, Tunzel. Yeah, and yeah, that was about an hour before the draft happened.
And then all of a sudden his draft status went zoop zoop zoop.
Right, right, and he kept falling and kept falling. Yeah.
I mean, so with the Jags 24th pick, obviously it's a full different cry from the last couple of picks and one. So I'm gonna go through each position and tell me and you'll tell me a couple guys you think could be there, starting with offensive line.
So who do I think will be there, or who do I want? Because
Both.
okay, so here's if I'm the Jaguars GM, okay, and so the safe pick, I don't want to call it a safe pick because the Jaguars have a bad track record when they draft University of Florida Gator players. Okay. They have a bad track record with that, but I think Osiris Torrance will be there. Okay. Now, while I've watched him, that is certainly a good pick. It's a first round talent, late first round talent, but that's not who I want. Okay. Now, who I want is going to take about a third round pick to trade up for and probably a pick next year. And next year, we don't have a second round pick because of the Calvin Ridley acquisition. So, who I want is Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. But he's going to go in between 10 and 15, somewhere in there. So the Jags would definitely have to trade up for him, cost them a third round draft pick this year, probably a draft pick next year. But that's who I want. I think the fallback, if say, Armageddon happens and both of those guys are gone, then you go back to Brian Branch, safety out of Alabama. And then I don't know why people are screaming the Michael Mayer tight end out of Notre Dame. I don't know why. Maybe they think that Evan Ingram is not going to play. I mean, he held out, but those were optional training activities. He held OTAs. I don't think he's going to hold out of training camp because I just don't think he's that type of guy. But I don't think Michael Mayer is going to be there either. So I think it's a moot point to talk about that tight end. But Darnell Wright is who I would have my eye on if they were to trade up and get an offensive tackle.
Yeah, and Darnell Wright played at Tennessee. Really held up well against Roy Anderson, who's going to be a top pick tonight.
Sure. And remember, Tennessee beat Alabama. Okay. And I love to remind my wife who went to Alabama of that Tennessee there. And here's an interesting little fact about the draft. Can you remember the last time an Alabama Crimson Tide player was picked number one in the draft?
What's your name?
Nah, it, it has never happened.
What's going to happen tonight?
Right. So Bryce Young could be, the not just quarterback but player. They've never had a number one player. And I know some people I was talking to earlier that were like, let me look that up. Yeah, okay. You can look it up all you want. But I think the first two players are coming out of Alabama, in the number one pick to Carolina and the number two pick to Houston. I think both of those are coming out of Alabama, in my opinion.
So you're thinking Paris Johnson and Peter Skoronsky will be a long gone if the Jags stay at 24, right?
I do. I do. Maybe I just don't see. If I had to put money on it right now, yesterday would have been Brian Branch, but I have to put money on it right now. I would say that they draft, if they don't move, they draft Osiris Torrance. And I just that's just a feeling that I get, from from the people that I've talked to and all that. I know they want Darnell Wright. I mean, who doesn't? you know, uh, um, if they were to go cornerback, I personally would like them to take Joey Porter Jr. personally. But yeah, Deontay Banks will be fine as well.
Um, I've heard some people say the Jazz could end up with Anton Harrison, the tap out of OU.
Oklahoma, yeah,
I mean,
could be good. But why get him if you could trade up and get him? Like, just trade up a few more spots and get Darnell Wright.
I mean, if I mean, let's just say for hypothetical purposes, none of the linemen's been picked, and it's 14. Would the Jags be wise to maybe go up and get a lineman, knowing the Jets could take one for Aaron Rodgers at 15?
You talking about Paris Johnson out of Ohio State?
Or Peter Skoronsky?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I mean, realistically, do we think those guys are going to be there?
No.
So, yeah. So, in a perfect world, if no offensive tackle has been taken, no offensive lineman has been taken, I think, also you brought up Anton Harrison. As athletic as he is, as athletic as he was at Oklahoma, not only could he play tackle, but he could probably play guard as well if you had to, because if you had him and Walker Little, and then when Cam Robinson comes back, and you're forgetting Jawan Taylor is now a Kansas City Chief. But if he had to, he could probably, as athletic as he is, he could play multiple positions. So, that speaks well to him. I don't know that I'm sure Darnell Wright could do that too, and Paris Johnson, but that's definitely
Aaron Johnson played guard in 2021, left tackle in 20.
right. Right. So, but I don't think he's going to be there. And he went to Ohio State. We don't want him on the Jags.
Wait a minute, he didn't go to Ohio State. He went to the Ohio State.
Okay, the Ohio State University. Sorry.
So, if the Jags decide not to take a tackle and maybe go pass rusher, who are the guys who could be there?
I don't trust Miles Murphy. Do you?
I don't know what to think of those Clemson linemen necessarily.
Yeah, they don't play anybody big until a bowl game, and they got I like Nolan Smith out of Georgia.
Yeah.
He's not going to be there though.
No.
I would love to think about this: Trayvon Walker and Nolan Smith in there.
Oh yeah, Josh Allen too.
Yeah, you got Josh Allen, number 41 in there. I mean, yeah, they I like Nolan Smith. If they could get him, maybe. I mean, then I think you're looking at Miles Murphy, and I don't trust those clowns from the ACC. And then I think you could go. Who's that guy out of Iowa State that they're all talking about? Will McDonald, is that his name?
Yeah, from Iowa State. Or who's the Iowa Hawkeye? Luke Van Hess.
Right. I mean, it could be that. It could be they're eyeing a guy from Georgia Tech, but again, that's kind of the who does Georgia Tech play, and when they play, who do they beat anybody? Granted, the NFL is a very different game than college football. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying that's the sample size that we have to view how these guys have played. The guy from Georgia Tech's name is Keon White. But I mean that's second round talent. I think you can get a second round if you're gonna trade up. Go after Nolan Smith if you're going edge or you pass rusher.
Yeah, because you think Will Anderson's going to be gone, Tyree Wilson's going to be gone. Nolan Smith feels like a 3-4 linebacker, which is fine for the Jags, but they already went And Jackson's done pretty well drafting Georgia defensive players, and who hasn't? Done.
Right. And there could be a camaraderie thing there because you play with Trayvon Walker. Um, people who let me tell you, in Jacksonville, the culture is everything. We've been through some bad times here, and I know people out there are like, don't mess with the Jaguar fans. They're used to losing and they still love their team. But I think the camaraderie on the line, could be there, and that would be almost an all SEC defensive line, or would be an all SEC defensive line. I love it.
And plus Northeast Florida. I mean, a lot of Georgia fans on that Northeast Florida, Southeast Georgia area.
Sure. There are a ton of dog fans here, a ton of them. They're the reason that nobody can drive around correctly.
Yeah, come to my area of Southwest Florida. Nobody
Yeah.
can come correctly either. So if the Jags don't go line, either line scrimmage, another big need to me seems more in the secondary. So who could be there? Because I would have to think Witherspoon from Illinois or Christian Gonzalez from Oregon will be long gone. I mean, could
Sure.
Joey Porter from Penn State, DeAndre Banks from Maryland, right?
Yeah, Maryland.
And then who's the Mississippi State corner?
Emmanuel Forbes.
Emmanuel Forbes, thank you.
Yeah. I think if you look at that, the want versus reality, naturally, Joey Porter Jr. I think would be a great pick out of Penn State. Is he going to be there? No. Is Deontay Banks going to be there? Probably not. Not at 24. I mean, these are probably early to mid-teen picks. Not Anton Harrison, I'm sorry, but Emmanuel Forbes could very well be there. He very well may be there. And so if they went corner and not safety, I think that's probably somebody that they're eyeing. But I think my gut feeling just tells me right now, talking defense is just they're just not going to go defense. My gut feeling tells me that they're going offensive line.
I don't think I would. I think Trevor Lawrence would like that because
Sure.
full protection, yes, please.
Right, and it's going to be, you can't fix the defense overnight. Not that it's fixable. I mean, this is a team that won a game in the playoffs and probably should have beat the Chiefs, but it's going to be score more than the other team. That's what it's going to be. They're going to win a lot of 30-27 games. It's going to be high scoring. Take the over.
Isn't that the NFL every week when you've got a great quarterback on one time, just score more than the other team?
Oh, sure. But what my point is, there's not going to be a lot of 10-7 games. There's not going to be a lot of defensive struggles. I went to a Jaguar game one time when in 2017 they with that defense that the final score was 10-3, and it was a playoff game against the Bills.
Yeah, let's just say this: Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence were not playing quarterback that afternoon.
Right? No, yeah, that was Tyrod Taylor who got hurt, and Nate Peterman came in versus Blake Bortles.
I mean, no, yeah, Blake Bortles was 3 minutes away from the Super Bowl.
Sure. Hey, Miles Jack still isn't down. They're still saying that here, and he doesn't even play for the Jags anymore.
I don't even know where he's at because he was with Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, he's in Pittsburgh.
All right, so as I do with a lot of my guests, I've got an NFL draft trivia question for you, Kev. So
okay,
everybody knows the Jags took Tony Baselli with their first choice in 1995. Who did Jacksonville take with its second first round of that year?
That's a really good question that I can't. I'm going to get this wrong. Let me see here. 95, second, first round. Well, wasn't Baselli was taken in the regular draft or the expansion draft? He was taken in the regular draft.
Regular draft.
Okay, so we had 2 first rounders. I'm going to. This is an educated guess. I'm going to go with Kevin Hardy.
I think it was in the next draft.
Okay.
The Jags took running back James Stewart.
That was my second choice. Was James Stewart. You know, he scored 5 touchdowns in one game. He was out of the University of Tennessee.
Yeah, how about that 95 draft? Curtis Morton was a 3rd rounder and Terrell Davis was a 6th rounder.
Sure. That was a great draft. What that produced was the better workings of the 1999 Jacksonville Jaguars. This is my favorite Jaguar trivia question. In 1999, the final record for the Jacksonville Jaguars was 15-3. How many teams did they lose to? That is correct.
And I'll tell you, Steve McNair beat us all 3 times.
Yeah. It was. Yeah, that's why Jags fans hate the Titans. It's because of not really McNair because we respect him, not really Eddie George because you respect that guy, but basically because of Jeff Fisher. You know, I can't look at that guy and think nice thoughts about Tennessee, and he hasn't been there, 10 years. But I thought it was very poetic for the Jags to clinch the division by sending those guys home.
Almost like what happened in the Cowboy game, right?
Yeah. Don't get me started on the Cowboys.
All right, so ultimately, who do you want the Jags to draft on? Who do you think the Jags will end up drafting?
I want them to draft I want them to trade up and spend the draft picks and get Darnell Wright. That's who I want. Is that going to happen? Probably not. I think it's going to wind up one of 2 things. If it's offensive tackle, it's going to be, or offensive line, it's going to be Osiris Torrance out of Florida. And if it's defense, I think Brian Branch is too good not to pick. Unless they can figure out how to get Joey Porter Jr. I love that guy.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens when Jackson's on the clock tonight because, whether you're in Duval County or Big D-ville, we'll be watching.
Okay, yeah, we'll be there.
So thanks for hopping on, Kev. Hopefully the Jags get your draft the next great Tony Baselli, the next great Rasheed Mathis tonight.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, thank you for having me today.